Joined today by Chris Hackett, head coach at Frank Phillips College. And coach, I'm curious to know, you've been talking to some of your players about these issues. And in terms of either nonviolent police harassment, that's also unconstitutional, I might add, or a non-lethal police brutality, roughly what's the feedback you're getting in terms of a percent or the results of these questions you're asking?
Well, I spoke to 17 players. 13 out of the 17 checked one of the boxes. 9 out of 17 checked two of the boxes, and 2 checked all 3 boxes.
So 13 out of 17 at a minimum have experienced nonviolent, unconstitutional police harassment. Given that that's a clear majority, probably in the 65% range, would you refer to this problem as something that's isolated or something that's more pervasive that we need to face as a nation and finally address?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's definitely not isolated. I mean, 13 out of 17, I think, is over 75%. I mean, put it this way, if 17 people went to a restaurant to eat and 13 people got sick, you'd say there's a problem with the food. So I think 13 out of 17 is a pretty clear majority.
I agree. And I'm also curious, Coach, what other thoughts you have? We've got a lot going on, and you obviously being a basketball white guy have a lot more close relationships with black people than the normal white person might. And so I'm curious if you'd like to add anything else.
I mean, I think the thing is it's not enough just to say, I'm going to do the right thing. I'm not going to be racist. I'm going to be careful in what I say. That's not enough anymore. I mean, if you weren't doing those things, great. Hey, that's a step in the right direction. But for the most part, they need allies. It's not enough just to say, I'm not going to do it. You've got to be an ally that's willing to step up and speak for them when those kind of things happen. I think maybe it was you that wrote it or somebody else that wrote it that said something along the lines of, it's not enough to not be a racist. You have to be actively anti-racism. And I think that's the next step that this country's got to take if we're going to take the next step in trying to give equality to everybody.
I agree with you. And the term traditionally was ally, and now anti-racist is becoming very popular. And they really kind of mean the same thing. But anti-racist provides, I think, a clearer definition about what it means to be an ally, because you're right. It's not enough to simply not participate in racism yourself. When you hear other white people say things that are racially objectionable, it's our obligation to speak up. And I read a great analogy online last night that if the neighbor above you in the apartment has a leaky pipe that's flooding your apartment and ruining your electrical wires, it's ultimately the responsibility of the apartment owner upstairs to fix that problem. And that's kind of what we see here, where white people and white institutions and white power structures have put black people in an untenable position. And then we keep looking at them like, well, when are you going to fix the problem?
Right.
They're like, well, we can't. Like, we can wipe up the water all we want, but until you guys will fix the leaky pipe in your own apartment, we're shit out of luck. And so I agree with you completely that it's past time for white people to have anti-racist conversations, even uncomfortable ones, with other white people. It's important for us to listen when black people or other anti-racists have a problem with things that we've said. And it's also important to vote based on this topic, because we currently are not holding politicians as accountable as we need to be. At the end of the day, unfortunately, politicians' number one objective is to get reelected. And white people in particular need to send the strong message to politicians that if you are not pursuing anti-racist policies, we are going to vote you out.
Yeah.
And once that happens, you're going to see white politicians jump on board. And we saw the same thing with marriage equality for the LGBT plus community. Everybody was sort of like, well, I'm not against LGBT plus people, but I don't know about the,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a clear majority of the American electorate said, we're on board with this. This is what we want. And suddenly politicians changed their tune. Because again, their main function in life, unfortunately, is to get reelected. So Coach, I really appreciate your time and willingness to join us and speak out and engage in conversations with your kids and listen, and also engage with white people in uncomfortable conversations to try to make them better. It's ultimately, black people can only do so much. It's easier, I've found, for a white person to receive criticism on the topic of racism from another white person than from a black person.
Yeah.
I've seen that repeatedly in observing black friends call white people out and in calling white people out myself. And so it's really incumbent upon us to fix the damn leaky pipe in the upstairs apartment.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate it, Pete. Thank you.
Yep. And we'll stay in touch and talk soon. And we're very happy to have you as an ally in this fight.
Thanks, Pete.
Okay. Cheers.